Welcome back to the Oklahoma Drill. We're 5 days away from the draft. 4 days. I don't know how time works.
Depending on how you look at time.
That's Sam. We've got Sam here with us, Alex as well. And we're going to start out by talking a little bit about how time has changed our opinions of the NBA, of the draft process, of what to look for in prospects, all these things. Those of you longtime listeners will remember our instant reactions from last year's draft, where Alex was just hopping mad about what the Thunder did. And time has not been kind to that interpretation of events. So I think let's just get into that right away. Alex, so first off, take us back to where you were last year and how you felt about the draft, how you felt about what the Thunder did.
Yeah, so I definitely, at the time, like going into the day of the draft, there was the whole thought process of, oh, we're actually going to trade up and get, Evan Mobley or whatever, or we're going to take, Jonathan Kuminga, James Bouknight, and we wound up taking Josh Giddey. And in my mind at the time, I just didn't see a guy that really fit my eye for what I want to see from a basketball player and like as a fit with this team specifically. I thought, I talked a lot about, balance of athleticism and skill and how we were slanting way too much towards skill. And, I went back and listened to that podcast yesterday, actually, just to kind of, try to remember kind of what I was specifically complaining about. And it was just, I think it was just kind of a dumb way to look at things. It was like a very, single-minded way of looking at the NBA and looking at basketball. And, I think you guys know that, I think I watched one preseason game of Josh Giddey and I was like pretty much sold on him. Like it was like, oh, he can do that. I had no idea. You know what I mean? So, I just think that it was a silly way to think of things and overvaluing some things like athleticism and undervaluing, like you look at a guy like Josh Giddey. I don't understand really how I looked at him and was like, he's not going to be a successful NBA player when all you have to do is watch the guy in the way that he sees the game of basketball. Like there's no way a guy like that is going to fail because it's not like he's, 6'1". He was like a 6'9" point guard that can see everything, is one of the best passers in the world. And I don't even know what I was really thinking at the time, to be honest.
Well, I think part of it, you bring up, he's not 6'1", he's like he's 6'8", 6'9". I think that his size didn't really become real to us until we saw him in proper action. Because I honestly, that was the most surprising thing about Giddey coming to the league was like, wow, he's like big. Like he is like, I stand by the idea that he will grow into being a true 4 in size. And, he doesn't necessarily have the wingspan to be like an incredible defensive 4, but he's going to become big. And that was one thing that I think that we were both underrating. And then I do think there was like some like rightful skepticism about whether, his functional athleticism would actually be functional in the NBA as opposed to the NBL. But I do think the thing that we were underrating was that we were like, holy cow, this kid can beat the game. And that's like, if you look at the like the spectrum statistics in terms for his rate is passing, he's like in the top 2 percentile of everything except for scoring gravity. Right. And it's like, that is what he brings. And yeah, I think you're right that like, given that, probably should expect success.
I don't have anything to ruminate on personally. Think I kind of nailed it on the head a little bit. And part of it was just getting to, be the dichotomy to Alex and playing a little devil's advocate and maybe leaning into things more than I actually believed at the time. But I think we saw the floor with Giddey that I kind of thought would be there a year ago. Secondary creator, perfect for that role. And like Ryan just said, if he can create the scoring gravity for himself, then he is an elite number one option. Just, how he'll be able to find those passes even easier if people are collapsing on him in the paint. The 3-point shooting was not there really last year. The step backs were incredible. So if you just watch Twitter and you see that boy nice, then you think Josh Giddey has a bright future ahead of him. So it'll be exciting to see where he goes and who Presti will kind of pair with him and Shea for the future.
Yeah, and I think this season he showed, just during different parts of the season, he showed so many different things. There was that time period, and maybe there's some concern with this, but the time period where he was playing without Shea and just kind of running the team as the primary initiator, like he was awesome. Like he did a lot of really nice things. There was the Madison Square Garden game triple double. I think what do you have, like 27 points or something? Like I didn't know that he was gonna have that ability. Like in my mind, I was thinking like, he's gonna be like this connector guy that can't really shoot, and hopefully he can at some point. And then that was, and it was just wrong, like just straight up. And like, so I think, I still believe that you need a certain level of athleticism on your teams, but you can't scoff at the idea of having the kind of skill set that a guy like Josh Giddey would have. And even, past him, like, cause I could have maybe gotten over the Giddey pick if the other picks I had liked more, but like Jeremiah Robinson Earl, I think I just completely undervalued. Like, I looked at his athleticism, as like, he's not a vertical athlete, and he's not that, but he's a really solid lateral athlete. Like there were a lot of times this season where he was switched out on guards and he looked fine, and I don't think he's going to be elite in that way, but I don't think he needs to be. You don't really need to be that elite on that specific skill, as long, if you can do the other things that he can do. I think he's going to shoot it fine. He's a good screen setter. He's going to pass it pretty well. Like he just knows how to play the game of basketball. And I think just the idea of the Thunder drafted 4 guys last year that are all just good at basketball. And that is certainly something that, they may not be the perfect fits together, but if you get enough good basketball players on a team, you're going to build a pretty good team.
And that was kind of my looking at last year, was trying to take a step back. They weren't, like we talked about, they weren't the guys that any of us would have drafted. It's not what we were used to seeing out of Sam Presti. But if you, looked at it from a macro level and saw, okay, this is what Presti's going for. We trust him as a smart guy. We know what he's doing, obviously. So if you look at it through that lens, like you said, all these guys at the time were probably the highest level of basketball IQ on the board. They had the best feel as far as the prospects left on the board. And so when you look at it that way, you're like, okay, this is exactly what he's going for. And he's probably right. And he got the best guys to accomplish that vision. And turns out in retrospect, early signs pointing to going 4 for 4 with the guys as far as like usable players. We're not saying Trey Mann's going to be a starter and be next to SGA and Josh Giddey, but like he's a quality player. Same with JRE, same with Wiggins. Looks like he can hold down 15 to 20 minutes a night as a wing. So it's encouraging to see, and it'll be interesting to see where Presti builds off that this year. Does he keep leaning into that feel, or like Alex said, you have to have some athleticism at some point? If you're confident in all 4 of those guys, high feel, maybe lower athleticism guys going forward, do you swing for athleticism this time? Do you like what's the philosophy going forward now? It'll be interesting to see what we do with the picks after number 2.
Yeah. In sort of the grand tradition established in last year's podcast, I want to overreact to the NBA Finals real quick. And I think if you were looking at this year's finals and trying to come up with a reason to say that it supports what Presti did last year, I think you would say, like, you look at the Celtics as a team that like were probably athletically superior to the Warriors, right? That had guys who can make shots, that had guys who can guard multiple positions. They were able to switch almost everything. Like this was a team that was like physically and in terms of like shot making ability, skilled enough to win an NBA championship. And the reason they didn't is that there were periods of time where they just didn't know how to fucking play basketball. Like just the inexcusable turnovers. Like they played stupid and lost the championship because of it.
I think I've said all playoffs, like Boston should have beat Miami in 4 or 5 games. Like they were that much more talented than Miami. And they fucked around for a couple games where they turned it over like 20 plus times and they would just lose. You know what I mean? Like Boston, I think from a talent standpoint, you just look at it at the matchup on paper with the Warriors. I thought they were going to win the series, right? But you are correct. Like everybody on that team, basically they didn't have a guy like Josh Giddey who like his primary skill as a basketball player is connecting everybody and creating plays for everyone. You know, like Jason Tatum's become a good playmaker, but he's coming from a place where he really wasn't much of one at all. Jaylen Brown's not a good playmaker. Marcus Smart has become a good-ish playmaker, but it's still Marcus Smart. He still is a weird shooter, and he does just some weird shit every now and then, you know? So, like, really probably the most, like, natural for his position, like, connector and player like that is Al Horford on that team, and he's 35 years old. So you're absolutely right. Like, they did not have – like, it's almost like they just needed a guy that was going to settle things down at times whenever, and they kind of banished the point guard position and sometimes it looks incredible, when Tatum's on his game, which he just wasn't in the finals, and that's okay. Like he's a young guy. I think if Tatum has a leap to make in regards to ball handling and playmaking, then the Celtics are going to be really freaking nasty to deal with, because the thing that made them so incredibly good was that they just didn't have any weaknesses on defense. They didn't play any bad defenders. So it got them this year. But I think more than anything, the way that I view basketball is that there's more than one way to do it. Like you need the most amount of talent as you can get. You need the highest number of good basketball players that you can put on one team. And then you've got to try and figure things out. If the Thunder get a team of like 8 really good basketball players, but they don't fit together, then that's a good problem. You can start kind of moving things around and like, oh, this guy's available in the trade market. We have a couple of guys they would probably like. We'll trade them with a couple picks. And then you bring in guys, the Celtics, they brought in Derek White this year. That was a huge signing for them, or a huge trade for them. They traded for Al Horford. Like that was a big deal for them. So, I think it was just, I don't know. I guess my thought process a year ago was just like the Thunder have to build like the ideal team, like in the next 2 drafts or something. And they just have way more time than that. And they have enough assets and there are enough players around the league that can fit what they might want to do at some point that they're going to be able to acquire as long as they just get good basketball players on their team.
And I think it also, like, I think having like smart guys who understand how to play basketball, like increases the versatility. More things fit when people understand more, right? I think it widens what you're able to do. And so that's when you have a guy like Josh Giddey, who I think, is theoretically somewhere between 1 through 4 in the future of this team. And it's not because he's an astonishing defender or like a lights out shot maker, but he's just a guy who, wherever he is in this lineup, is going to maximize his skill set there because he understands how to play basketball really well.
And I still, I like last year, I remember Sam Vecini talking about of all of the guys that were, if they could shoot it guys, Giddey was the one that he was the most confident in developing that shot. Like that's still a thing. Like he can develop his shot. And if he becomes a league average shooter, and if he gets to where he can shoot off the dribble, even if it's just in the mid range, You know, even if it's just a really reliable floater, which he showed at times this year, like he's going to be really hard to deal with, you know, and he's going to get a lot stronger where he's, you know, if you put a smaller guy on him, he's just going to be able to body him a little bit and kind of, you know, just take advantage of those kind of situations. So, you know, I'm super high on Giddey. He's genuinely my favorite player on the team now. Like I like him more than Shea. Like, and I'm not saying he's better than Shea, but I like watching him more than I like watching Shea. But yeah, I mean, really, I don't think I'll ever be in a position where I will react to a draft like I did last year. I think that was like the one that was just like,
come on, don't sell yourself short.
What are you doing? Yeah. Now, I mean, maybe they draft like, you know, Dyson Daniels at 2, and then I might have a meltdown this year. But you know, short of something crazy, which I like Dyson Daniels, but you know, short of something crazy, I'm gonna let things play out a lot more than I did last year, where it was, you know. But real quick, how do you guys feel just overall about where the Thunder are now? Like before this draft, you know, like how do you feel like players on the team, like essentially how many guys on this team are important to you in terms of development? Because I know last year, this time, I think all of us were kind of fans of Theo Maledon. I don't think there's any of those at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I think we were probably higher on Poku a year ago than maybe we are right now. So like just kind of a check-in, like how do we feel about the process that the Thunder are kind of in right now and pre this draft? How do you guys feel about it?
I think it'll just depend on, you know, what clues we get from Presti and from the start of the season, where we think we're going. Are we gonna spend another season to just see what happens and then try and get as high in the draft as possible and let guys develop another year, and essentially getting these guys G League reps against NBA competition, which I think has been invaluable for guys like Giddey. As long as you don't have someone that's scared of the moment and is going to develop bad habits doing that, I think that's incredible to get to have. It's a lot better just to get to go out there and play against NBA talent and figure it out, as opposed to just going and figuring it out against G League talent. So if we, you know, are going for that this year, then I'm perfectly fine with, like, I'm still not giving up on Theo Maledon quite yet, just because he's so young, and I would want to see if they're going to, you know, give him the time to do that. For me, it all depends on what's going on internally with Shea. Is he cool with like never like playing half of a season and making, you know, 30 something million dollars this year? That sounds awesome to me when I were that age. Maybe he's getting bored with not playing basketball so much. Maybe he just wants to win already. And if that's the case, then I think you have to be fine with cutting bait on guys like Poku and Theo Maledon. You want to keep Lu Dort around as opposed to trading him while he's still arguably one of the most valuable contracts in the league. So I think whatever direction we go, I think Shea is at that level where you consult him heavily. And if he wants to win, I think we're in a position to start winning. And I think we're in a position to make a push easily for the play-in this year. Maybe you're making a push for a 6th seed this year, depending on how ready the guy you draft is and what you can do with, you know, trading some prospects for maybe some immediate talent. I think can be a playoff team this year. And then if guys progress a lot, you're pushing for a top 4 seed next year. Or I think if, you know, your most important players are cool with, you know, waiting it out and chilling one more year, then that's fine as well. And I think, you know, you could still be pushing for a 10 seed if you want to, while letting a bunch of guys get minutes, and not necessarily, you know, getting the masses riled up about your tank. So I think there's whatever range OKC wants to go, they can go. And I'm not going to say what is the right or wrong way to do it, because, you know, I don't get the privilege to pick the minds of our most important players in that process.
So I think I'm definitely more, sorry, Ryan.
No, go ahead.
You know, whereas this past year, like, we needed to lose as many games as possible. Like, that was obvious. And, you know, it wound up working out. And the tanking that we did at the end of the year was kind of abominable. Like, it was impressive stuff. But the this next season, I think it's, to use a Sam Presti term, like, I hope I get this right. Like, he talks about letting a team kind of announce itself for whatever he says. So I think that, going into this year, I don't think we should trade any of the young chips or whatever. Don't trade any picks. Don't trade any of the young guys. But just, if Poku's ready to take a step, I'm not out on Poku. I think he's still, I don't necessarily know if he has, I don't think he has like all-star upside, like maybe we might have thought at one point, but I think he has good role player upside. And declare itself. That's what Sam Presti says. He says he wants to let a team declare itself. And so I think doing that again, and honestly, if we could do that and, everybody's playing okay, but we don't win that many games and we want to, 28, 30 games, I think that would be a really good result for next year. And then, maybe the last 10 games of the year, you do the same type deal where you shut everything down, where instead of like the entire second half of the year, it's just, 10, 15 games, to where then you're playing for a lottery spot. Maybe you can get up to 6th or 5th or whatever. And then you never know what can happen from there,
Yeah, I think, I think, you go back and you listen to Sam's press conference, Sam Presti, not our Sam,
not Davis.
Of course, yeah.
Unfortunately, haven't.
You should do some press conferences sometime. That'd get fun.
Step in.
And I think he makes it pretty clear what the team's outlook is, and I think he's probably in the right spot in terms of just let the team show us what it is, and if they're playing meaningful games, then good, and if not, then we'll focus on development more. Focus on development.
I mean, I'm down to watch Xavier Simpson do some more hook shots. Honestly, give me a few games of that next year. I'm okay with that.
But in terms of guys, I think with Teo, it's just I'm not sure where the leap is going to come. Maybe he just becomes like a lights out catch and shoot guy, and then it's like, okay, now he has a place on an NBA team. But absent that, like, he just feels like he's plateaued in every skill, and the result is that he's kind of mediocre at everything. So I'm not completely out on him, but I just don't know where he goes from here. I feel like I probably have the longest runway I'm willing to give Poku out of all of us. Like, I think this might be a thing where we should check back in maybe 3 years, but we'll see. I am interested, I think, and it's, there's a degree to which maybe it's a mirage because this was sort of the case last year too. But towards the end of the season, I think he was showing real improvement. And I think that, the reports we were getting in was like he's finally starting to come into his body more. Like he's finally able at that point, like he can get through a practice without being completely like destroyed. And like, I think the result was showed in his play, which honest, like, Alex talked about him becoming a role player, which is like the one thing that we thought was impossible. And I think it's just like, he's become a lot more solid because he's not freaking wiped out all the time. And so I'm willing to give Poku a lot more range. I'm gonna have to step away for a bit, so you guys keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm willing to. I think it'll be interesting to see, or I think the indicators of the future are going to hinge on Kenrich and Lou Dort, because those are the kind of the two guys. They're very tradable contracts right now. Any team, 29 teams in the league would love to have them if they're trying to compete this year. So I think if we keep those guys and wait it out on this, I think, are they both on their last years of their deals coming up?
I know.
I can't remember.
I can't remember Kenrich.
But if we want to hold on to them, they are both very obviously good role players for playoff teams, and I think it's a sign that we ourselves want to compete. And if we move one or both of them, I think it's very obvious that maybe we're taking one more year to let some of those other guys develop, let Teo and Poku and Bazley get those NBA reps some more, and then next year we try and take that leap with whoever. I can't even think. Do you know off the top of your head who would be like the 2023 draft class? I don't know if there's any Jabari Parker type saviors in that class as of right now.
It's Victor Wembanyama. I mean,
right.
That's the guy.
Yeah. So I don't know if you try and tank and pair Victor Wembanyama with presumably Chet Holmgren,
that'd be fantastic.
Or what you do.
I would love it.
That would be insanity. I would put a middle linebacker at center, and I would decimate the Thunder's two most important players within the first couple minutes of a game. But so yeah, I think there's a million paths we can go, and I think we should be able to tell pretty early in the season what the plan is going to be. Hope that whatever it is, fans respond to it. What would I prefer? I mean, the politician answer in me is, I prefer whatever Shea wants. If Shea is cool, Shea's like, I'm cool with anything you 100% believe in. I think I'd prefer, waiting it out one more year and seeing what you can get max value for. I don't want to just, scrap anything I can for a second round pick like Sam Hinkie. But if, someone's willing to give up, let's say Atlanta wants to compete this year, they'll give up, Jalen Johnson and, a high second round pick or something to get a Lou Dort type that you might lose in a year anyway. Yeah, do it. Or if you can stack more first round picks so that you have them spread out across a bunch of drafts instead of having them consolidated in these next coming drafts for, Kenrich Williams, if you can get a first for him or something. Do it. But I'm not just getting rid of them just for the sake of doing it. So I think you go with what brings you the most value. I think if there's value for those guys and Shea's cool with it, trade them, stack it up. I think you're set up well for next year. If you can't do it, then go out there and win. Winning's fun. We could easily have a Memphis type season. I think if things break right, teams don't take the regular season as seriously. We've obviously seen the Thunder be tryhards when they shouldn't be. So I'm not going to predict OKC is the second overall seed next year, but I think it's, if they are trying all out, is within their range of outcomes for Chet to be a rookie of the year type, for Shea to, be better or as good as Ja Morant, for Josh Giddey to be a very good quality number two. I think it's within the range of outcomes to be like a 50-win team. So that would be fun to do if your three most important guys hit their ceiling. I think they're a high quality team that would be too early in their timeline to win anything seriously, but it would be a fun time. It could get the Paycom Center rocking. Do we have a fun nickname for the Paycom Center?
I don't.
That's a shame. They need to do something with that.
Yeah.
They need to figure something out. Branding's everything. FedEx Forum, that's a good name for a rocking stadium.
Right.
It's just it's the name of a brand, but it's a good name for a stadium.
Yeah, I don't know if people maybe called it like the Calm or something.
The Calm.
I don't think that works very well, but
the Peak unfortunately was great.
The Peak was good. The Peak was good.
So whatever you can do, if everyone's all in and you want to buy into just being a good team this year, I think it's there, and you can get excitement going again. There are just so many factors that go into it. I'm not necessarily envious of trying to balance all that.
Yeah, I don't think the Thunder have anywhere close to the ceiling to have like a Memphis type season. If you can have that season, then do it, sure. But to me, next year, I think is likely to feel more like an NBA season that we've kind of known all our lives, just because the off season is going to be a real off season. So teams are going to be, it's just going to be, I feel like, a little more normal. Like the last 3 years essentially have been just super weird. And I think that the fact that the Thunder were so willing to try hard every night has been a huge advantage for them. I think there's going to be more teams that step up, and or I'm hoping that's the case, just it would make for better basketball across the league. But so I think that lowers the ceiling of what the Thunder could get and from a regular season win standpoint. And I would much prefer sucking again. Like I would, I know Shea, like, Shea's got to be okay with it, but if Shea's cool with, oh, I've got another ankle thing or whatever, like I would do it, because getting another high pick next year and putting that with what we have, if we hit, especially if we hit on 2, if we hit on 12 too, like that, then you're really looking at a team that's like, oh shit, there's a lot of high-end talent on this team. And maybe it's not all perfectly fit together, like I was talking about earlier. And then you go trade it for, I don't know, whoever, you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of teams, when they start, when they trade stars, a lot of teams are looking for good players and not picks, and if we have those good players on the roster and then you can supplement those players with picks, then you're an easy choice to make a high-end trade. Or next year at the draft or whenever, you can make a trade in the draft, like, oh, we're at 5, we want to get to 3, can make that super easily, like, because this year the Kings are really interested in trading number 4, but I don't think the Thunder have anything really worth offering to them. I don't think Dort or Kenrich is enough, even with picks to give them what they want. They want a guy that's going to help them make the playoffs. And I don't think Dort or Kenrich is like that guy. They can help a team, but they're not going to make you, they're not going to take you from being a non-playing team to a playoff team. That's not a thing that happens. So, but if you could maybe get a couple guys like that, then trading for a superstar becomes a lot easier. So,
so what do you think? What do you think? Let's say 2 years from now, OKC, that's when you think they have the potential to be a Memphis 2022 kind of team, make that leap, luck into a second seed. Do you think that path is what makes them in 2 years most likely to get there? Or do you think they need to practice winning this year, figure out how to do that a little bit, and then 2 years from now, what do you think puts us on that path?
I don't think we're 2 years away from being that Memphis team. I think we're 3.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. Like, I think next year, like the year after that, we could start, Memphis was Ja's second year, they were a play-in team that made the playoffs.
Right.
Right. I think we could do that. And that's kind of like Presti has made the statement that he wants the playoff appearance to not be an appearance and it to be at a rival. That's kind of what Memphis has seemingly done. Like, they went from being a 7 or 8 seed to being like the number 2 seed in the conference. So I think that is potentially what we could be in for 3 years from now. Because
but so you think that 7 seed will have to come 2 years from now? You think if we try and get to that next year, be too early or unattainable?
Yeah, I think it's unattainable next year, personally, barring some kind of big trade that I don't think we'll make. I don't think we'll make a trade for, like if we were to trade for, and get DeAndre Ayton in here and maybe another guy that's already a good player, sure. But we're not going to do that. I think we're going to draft, probably Chet. And I don't think Chet's going to be this like immediate force. Like I like Chet a lot, but I think it's going to take him 2 or 3 years to be like a true every night winning center, And then if you get a high pick in 2023, they're probably not going to be great their first year. Like if they are, then cool. Maybe we can make a run, but it'll probably take him a year or 2 to really be that kind of guy. And which is why I think in 3 years, you're looking at a team that could be something. And if the Thunder in 3 years go on this path, they add another really talented player next year, they hit on 2-12 this year, I think they're going to be in a lot better position than Memphis, because I'm not sure Memphis didn't hit their ceiling this year. Because like Ja Morant is phenomenal. How much more productive can that guy get? He was so freaking good this year. He was a top 10 player this year. Is he going to be the best player in the NBA? I don't think so. how much better can Desmond Bane get? I don't think he can get much better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jaren Jackson. I think Jaren Jackson kind of is who he is. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I worry about Memphis. I mean, I don't worry about him, but like if I were predicting, like, I'm not sure Memphis is gonna just be able to do this every year and like take step by step and be in the finals in a couple of years.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just not seeing
and then you're at a bad spot. You're, you know, what the Atlanta Hawks were for so long,
Right.
or what the Pacers were for so long. You're a perennially good team. But what does that
what
get
the
you?
Memphis Grizzlies were.
Yeah, what the Memphis Grizzlies were with
mean?
maybe a little bit of higher end talent. I mean, your best talent before was Zach Randolph, Rudy Gay, Mike Conley. So yeah, Pau Gasol or Marc Gasol. So yeah, I think Ja probably has higher end talent than most of those guys. You could make an argument for Pete Gasol, but yeah, I think Ja has more talent. But yeah, how much more? You know, how is he really an elite guy? Is SportsCenter, you know, jamming him down my throat to make me think he's an elite guy? I don't know. I think you hate to talk about it. I think it's certain at some point the explosion that Ja has and how he lands after that explosion, a lot of the time it starts to add up. And for, you know, Zion Williamson at 270 pounds, it added up a lot quicker for him. Yeah. But yeah, anytime it can happen to anyone, and I think you're only increasing your likelihood for that happening when you play as exciting as Ja does.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might be right on that, and so maybe that's a warning for OKC to be more patient and look at it as a 3-year timeline to try and attain that. If everyone buys in, awesome, that's great. My only worry is if you don't try and win next year, are Lou Dort and Kenrich Williams on this team in 2 years? Are you taking a step back when you don't have those elite role players anymore? You know, what are you looking at team wise? Are you losing your high end role players and you're retooling with high ceiling guys like Chet and, you know, whoever we might be able to acquire next year in the draft? So that would be the only concern with that. At a certain point, you know, you're not going to be able to afford anything better than what you have down the road. Lou Dort's probably going to get paid, probably more than you think he should whenever that contract's up. Eventually, you're going to have to pay Josh Giddey too. We think he's going to be worth a good contract. If he is a max player by then that's a good sign. But if he's a guy that you are giving a max contract to, but he's not max talent yet, that's where it gets concerning, and you're putting a lot into projection there. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I guess the thing I would say that I think the Thunder, that I like where the Thunder stand, because I think every player on the team really genuinely seems to like Oklahoma City a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Giddey wanted to be in Oklahoma City. I think Chet, that's who he wants to draft him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Jabari Parker would Jabari Smith.
Yeah.
I think Jabari Smith probably would love to be in Oklahoma City, you know, and not to say that they're going to give him like this huge discount or anything, but I think that guys like that might be more willing to be patient for the process. And I think Sam Presti is a really effective general manager in creating an environment where everybody's like pulling the same way, you know what I mean? And, you know, I think part of, you know, us as Thunder fans, we're always going to be a little bit scarred by how the Kevin Durant situation turned out. But if you really think about, you know, if the Thunder are in that position again with just literally a different person, it probably goes their way and they resign. You know what I mean? Like the thing we know about Kevin Durant is like that dude just does his own thing, you know, like he's just Kevin Durant, you know, like I don't think most guys would have made the decision he made. So I don't think you can plan your future just thinking, oh, that's, you know, Shea's going to be the exact same way. Shea might want to be here forever. You know what I mean? Josh Giddey might want to do the same thing. So
I think that's honestly something the Thunder have looked for in draft prospects is, they've drafted a lot of international guys. Who are the guys that have started signing supermaxes with small markets? It's Nikola Jokic, it's Giannis. Luka looks like he's going to do the same thing. Like it's the European, it's the international players. And the Thunder have really kind of started leaning that direction. And so I don't know. I'm kind of going into this next phase just assuming that things are not going to go as unluckily and poorly as it did the last time that we had elite players on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. That hopefully is a continuing trend. Like you said, yeah, it seems like there've been a lot of guys in this draft, and I'm in a little bit of an echo chamber because I don't see all the beat writers from other teams and whatnot, but I see a lot of people, Jabari Smith's team, his high school coach, there are rumors that, he'd love to be drafted by OKC. You saw him, Sam Presti was picking him up at the airport when he landed at Will Rogers. Shaden Sharp is in, TikTok comments responding with eyeball emojis to people saying he should go to the Thunder. The rumors are he's not working out for other teams. He wants the Thunder to draft him. Is this a long-term thing? Yeah. Chet, same thing. Is this a long-term thing? Is it these guys know that it's an obviously awesome spot to develop, and then they want to be somewhere down the road, somewhere else down the road? You hope not. You hope that they're not just using OKC as a farm team to get their max contract.
Well, at the same time, though, even if that's the case, that's still like a positive outcome for the Thunder in terms of even if top prospects aren't all going to be willing to stay here once they hit unrestricted free agency. Like if the understanding is that this is a good place to be drafted by, and this is a good place to develop and grow as a player, then that's a reputation Oklahoma City can use and have good young players.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ultimately think that all of them will bolt for LA at the first chance, but even if some of them do, then that's okay still.
Yeah. And this is also part of the genius of Sam Presti, and something, I've recognized more as I've gotten older and stopped playing 2K. But these are people. At the end of the day, these are people you're dealing with. And as an NFL fan, I love the Baltimore Ravens. And I've seen the Ravens have done this for years, that the way, especially when you're a small market like OKC, the way you're going to have to attract talent is to be a well-run organization. And the right players will see that eventually. And, even when we get guys, Al Horford, Chris Paul, that are good here, could maybe help us, Sam Presti has always done right by them. The organization, I can't think of a single player they've really spurned. Anytime a player wanted to leave, Sam Presti got them in the most favorable situation for them he could. And a lot of times, it's overlapped with OKC getting incredible value back. But, he re-signed Paul George because he told him, if you want to go to LA and this is blown up, I'll send you to LA. And he did that. He got Russell Westbrook, where he wanted to go at the time. Al Horford, Chris Paul, all these guys. I mean, he gave Kemba Walker $30 million to not play. So thanks, Clay Bennett, for finally, opening up your paycheck or your checkbook and letting Sam Presti do what he wants with it. But he's always done right by everyone. And that, that's going to come to fruition someday. Shea got his max deal. One of these young talents we're talking about is going to get their max deal, whether they all want to stay in Oklahoma City or not long-term. At least one of them is going to get paid by Oklahoma City. So you'll get good level talent sticking around just because, they want to come to OKC in the first place. They'll get there and see it's a great spot for me to be basketball wise. Maybe this is a sociological debate for a different day, but I think, the level of social media these days maybe helps Oklahoma City. People see you can be a massive star regardless of where you are. You don't have to be in the biggest TV markets. Yeah, it helps, but you can be in the best basketball situation for yourself. And if you're a good player, people are going to follow you on Instagram regardless. So that might play into OKC's favor where you can just pick the best basketball situation for yourself. And maybe as, more Gen Zers get into the league, they realize the value of themselves versus the value of, the area that I'm living in for 5 months out of the year.
So can we so we're going to do a kind of a mock draft, or just the lottery. But before we do that, can we talk about kind of what we want, like what we would kind of like to see the Thunder come away from this draft with? Are there guys, and we're probably mostly going to be talking about 12, because I think there's 3 guys that we could talk about it too. So who do you prefer it to? If we had the pick of anyone, who would you like it to? And then a couple guys at 12 that you hope either fall there, or the Thunder just identify that they really like.
So I think I'm still on Team Chet at 2. I just think, like you said, he wants to be here. That's a big plus. I think any of the top 3 guys would be fine. I think OKC has the biggest benefits, not the right word, but they'd be the best place. They theoretically will be able to get the most out of Chet over Orlando or Houston, where they can be patient with him and give him time. And I think Chet's high end is bigger than Jabari's or Paolo's. So that's why I would want him in OKC for 2. Either you guys have takes on 2?
Yeah, Team Chet as well. I think, I just keep thinking about like low end outcomes, like median outcomes and high end outcomes for him. And like, I feel like the low end outcome is, it could suck. Like, I mean, he could never be strong enough to really do much, but even the low end outcome is probably like a stretch 4 that can help weak side rim protect. That's still fine. That's not a bad player to have, because I think he's mobile enough to guard most 4s. I don't think that would be a huge issue. Median outcome is like Gobert with the 3-point shot, which people have been talking about that for a while, except for, he's more mobile than Gobert. That's a great player to have. Like, even if that's just how it goes, like that's a building block for your team. And then high end outcome is just like best defensive player in the league that can also, take advantage of almost any 5 off the dribble and create shots. And, like he's talking about being a 50, 40, 90 shooter. Like that'd be a pretty high end outcome. And if you got a guy like that, then yeah, you're pretty much set for however long he's here at the center position.
Yeah. I'm also currently Team Chet. I really like Paolo. I can't stress enough that I really like Paolo. But at the end of the day, I think about which player I'm willing to see go to the Rockets. And if Chet goes to the Rockets and succeeds, I'm going to be livid. So it's Chet for me. I think there's things to like about both of them. I think Paolo is a guy who could legitimately be, and this is actually an interesting thing. And I think this is another situation where opinions on this have evolved. But last year's draft podcast, we talked, Alex. So like 2 years ago, we were, Shai is a 3rd option on a championship team. And then last year we said Shai's a 2nd option on a championship team. And I think if you still think Shai is a 2nd option, I think Paolo is a guy who could be a number 1 scoring option in the NBA on a high level playoff team. But Chet is just, I think Chet does ultimately fit more with what Oklahoma City has always tried to be, which is a defense first team that prioritizes effort and mentality. And I think I just think he has the opportunity to be something really special. And so does Paolo. But for me, I'm Team Chet.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Jabari Smith.
That's why
I can't get excited about Jabari Smith. He's gonna be good too, unless he goes to a horrible situation, which he might.
Yeah, that's why I just hate that the Rockets got the 3rd pick, because I also agree. I think Paolo could be a number 1 scoring option on a good team, and I hate for Houston to receive that. I'm hoping that all of their pieces, because he definitely doesn't. I don't think he fits as well with Jalen Green and who else do they even have? I don't think he really fits with Şengün. They got rid of Christian Wood, so I guess that's probably opening up a spot for Paolo.
Yeah. The thing about Paolo in Houston is that if he goes to Houston, which I think everyone seems to assume is what is going to happen at this point, he will never be a good defender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess I should have said, I think his offensive skill set does work with Jalen Green and Şengün. I hope that, in a place with a little less structure like Houston than OKC, I hope he doesn't realize that while he's there. I hope the best for him. I don't want the best for him to happen while he's in Houston, because he is a very good passer. I hope that he just gets the same mentality and they're all just chunking, taking ISO shots the whole time. And hopefully he likes doing that, because he could probably score 20 points a game like that. And I think it wouldn't make a difference for Houston. And that would be a fine outcome for me. I am nervous about them getting Paolo though, but you gotta be happy with the guy you get. And I want that to be Chet for us.
Yeah. Well, Alex brought up that, I mean, presumably the projected starting lineup would have Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Paolo, and Şengün. And that team can't defend at any position.
Mm.
Well, that is also only 4 guys, but
that's true. It's it's very difficult, I find, to defend if you're only playing 4 guys.
Yeah, for sure.
This is why they got to bring in Jovic.
Yeah.
So then for 12, I mean, there's a lot of guys I like at 12. Would love Jeremy Sohan. That's who Kevin O'Connor at the Ringer has mocked to the Thunder at 12. I don't think he's still going to be there at 12. I think you're going to have to trade up with like Portland at 7 to get Sohan. But you never know. Someone's got to fall. I mean, a lot of the guys in that range, Dyson Daniels, maybe Shaedon Sharpe falls there. Hopefully you don't have to trade up for him. We'll see what is available there, but any wing like that, I would love to get at 12. I kind of also like Tari Eason. I think maybe 12 is a little bit high for him, but I really like the player, and I think it would be fine to take him there.
So the thing I'll say with like Tari Eason at 12 is that I think that, the NFL draft, I think it's I think the mock drafts do a pretty nice job of kind of determining value, and it's like, oh, that guy was a second round projection and goes late first or something. I don't think they really know anything in the end.
Yeah.
Like last year, Josh Primo went 12, and he was like maybe a late first guy going into the draft. If you want Tari Eason, which I think he's I like Tari Eason too. Like taking him at 12 is fine in my opinion, because you might trade down to 16 thinking he's going to get there. And then, Charlotte takes him, what I mean? So,
and that's the benefit of having so many picks stacked up, is like, it's at a certain point, there's diminishing value on them. So I'm always typically, team trade back, get value, but is it that much value for OKC to trade back anymore? Not as much. So you can afford to reach on guys a little bit, and you can, fuck the nerds, and I'm going to eat a little bit of value on this and take the guy I want.
Right. Well, it's like last year's draft. Like, I don't think any of us have an issue with getting Jeremiah Robinson Earl at 32, even though we had to trade 2 picks to get him.
Yeah.
We got a solid rotation big.
Yeah.
I personally don't have any issues with drafting Trey Mann at 18.
Mm-hmm.
Most people didn't have it. Most people had him in the 20s. And I don't have any problem getting Giddey at 6. Like Memphis traded up to 10 last year to get him at 10.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the Warriors apparently there's a, big rumor that they wanted him a lot. Like, so, just take the guys you believe in, and, hopefully they turn out good. So, Ryan, who do you like at 12?
I really like Sohan at 12. I really hope that happens. I also, I am interested in if AJ Griffin falls there, which is entirely possible. I kind of like the idea of taking AJ Griffin, because he's just, first off, he's so young, and for him to be as physically developed as he is, and as young as he is, and as good a shooter as he is, like the fact that he is currently an abysmal defender, is like, there's room for that to improve because he's so young. So I like AJ Griffin there. And of course, Jeremy Sohan, who we talked about before. Like, I think we just watched Draymond vindicate himself after playing god awful for the first half of the finals, actually playing pretty good, and really good in game 6 to seal it. The value of a guy who can defend 1 through 5 and like can't shoot, but makes his presence known on the offensive end in other ways. That's an important player for a team to have. And Jeremy Sohan is like, that feels like the thing he's going to be able to do more than anything. Also, he's going to be another guy. We talked last pod, we talked about how Chet Holmgren is a bit of a motherfucker. Jeremy Sohan is a bit of a motherfucker. And so having 2 of those guys in the front court is going to make a lot of people very upset, and it's not going to be Thunder fans.
Yeah. If we get, all these motherfuckers on the team, I just hope that they are, the kind of lovable motherfuckers that competition appreciates their competitors, and not what Memphis is turning into, where, they're these motherfuckers on the court, but they're also like actively tweeting and talking shit to the Golden State Warriors, who did just win the championship. And I don't want that. Like, once you're on the court, get locked in, get that mindset going. But, once you've lost, don't be delusional with being a motherfucker anymore. But I would that would be a hard ass team with Chet Holmgren and Jeremy Sohan.
Yeah. One last thing about Tari Eason. And this is a thing where I really want Sam Vecini's draft guide to be out, because the 2 text breakdowns I've got in front of me are from John Hollinger and Kevin O'Connor. And I don't like either of them nearly as much as I like Vecini as analysts, but they concur that he kind of plays like a dumbass.
Yeah.
And I don't think that fits what the Thunder want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I love Sohan. I would be willing to trade up for him. I think him and Chet.
I think he's the kind of guy you should be willing to trade up to 7 for.
Yeah. Long-term fit with Chet as a 4 at the 4 and the 5. Like, that could just be like absolutely elite defensively. And I don't think he's a bad offensive player. Like, he can't shoot right now, but he can do other stuff offensively.
Yeah.
He's not Andre Robertson, he's not Hustis or whatever on offense. So like, that would be great. With that said, I want Shaedon Sharpe, because I have a secret that I haven't divulged.
He has a secret.
I haven't divulged yet on this podcast. And that secret is that, long term, if Shaedon Sharpe hits, I would trade Shai.
Man,
if Sharpe hits the way he can, and you have Giddey and Sharpe, I don't think you need Shai. I think you need a guy that can defend better at that position. And I think you need a bigger guy. So that's my hope in drafting Sharpe would be that he could make Shai expendable.
And then you trade Shai for Paul George.
And then you trade Shai for Paul George. And then you're set. Like,
and then you've come full circle.
Right, exactly. That's like my, I like Shai. As long as he's here, I'm gonna, root for him. I think he's really good. But I do kind of wonder, like, if you're not better off with a bigger player, if you've got a guy like Sharpe as well, so that's
and that would, like we were talking earlier about, eventually you're going to have to get into Giddey potentially getting a max contract, and you're running out of money. That helps reset the timeline. You get Shai's contract to someone else, and now Giddey is your first max contract. He's your highest paid player, and then you're resetting what you can do with all that money. So if Sharpe hits, that would be amazing. We'll see if he's successfully tanking his value to 12, or if we have to go up to 7 or so to get him. He's still being projected fairly highly, but like you said earlier, that's from analysts who know the upside. That's not from GMs with their ass on the line. So if you draft this guy that hasn't played basketball since he was in high school, and then he sucks right away, there's not a lot of billionaires that are going to be cool with that. Right. So there's the potential for him to fall there. It could happen. I'd definitely be fine with that. So do you want to get into our mock drafting and see if Shaedon makes it to 12 for us?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I think we decided that I would go first. Ryan will go second, even though we've already all kind of agreed we'd take Chet to the Thunder, and Alex will go third. I think we kind of all are in agreement with how we would do this order. First, I'm going to go with Jabari Smith to Orlando.
Is this who you would take if you were the Magic?
This is who I would take as well. If I'm Orlando, if I'm in their shoes, if I'm their GM, I would take Jabari Smith because I think he's the most ready to go for them right now. I think they kind of need that. They've been, OKC gets this shit for tanking so much and being an embarrassment to the league when we were in the playoffs 2 seasons ago.
To be fair, so were the Magic.
Yeah. But the Magic, they and I don't think they should have to speed up their clock, but that playoff season the Magic had, that was their ceiling that they reached of recent years. And I think they just need to get guys to play and win. I think Jabari is that. I think he fits well with anybody. Any team would be happy with Jabari. So yeah, I would go with him first overall for them.
Yeah, I'm taking Chet.
For all the reasons stated.
Okay, so I'm picking for the Rockets. I'm taking Jaden Ivey.
Oh man. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Can you believe this man?
I specifically requested to be third because I wanted to make this pick for the Rockets.
So why, in your opinion, should the Rockets take Jaden Ivey?
Well, firstly, I don't think Kevin Porter Jr. matters long term for any team, especially the Rockets, whatever.
Okay.
But
very fair.
I like the idea so much of pairing Jaden Ivey and Jalen Green in the backcourt. Like that's the most explosive athletic backcourt maybe ever, probably the most explosive backcourt of all time. And I think that they could play off of each other and they would just be a nightmare to. I like Paolo a lot, but defensively, if you've got a 4 or 5, whatever he plays for them that can't defend, that's really hard to overcome. Whereas if, I think Ivy could be a fine defender and it's not that big a deal to have bad guard defenders as it is having bigs that can't defend. So if I'm the Rockets, I'm looking at Ivy and Green and I'm thinking that could be an absolutely elite combo, like a better version of, if it hits, a better version of like the John Wall Bradley.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And I would also be fine with, cutting bait on Kevin Porter Jr. I'm with you. I don't think Houston should be married to him. So that's a good pick. Ivy is who I would have gone with at 4 for the Kings. I would have continued going chalk. I think that's a great pairing with De'Aaron Fox. Also, I think it's a better pairing with Tyrese Halliburton, but Sacramento made their decision for how they wanted to go. So this is where they're at.
Sam, before you pick for Sacramento, the Detroit Pistons have a trade offer for you. We will give you 5 Jeremy Grant and whatever else you want for 4.
I mean, if you're the Kings, you take that. Well, I guess if Paolo's on the board, that's interesting.
This is why in this scenario Detroit is making this offer.
I anticipate trades being part of the.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to go look at cap sheets and how much room do I have for Jeremy Grant? How many more years does he have? But that's a good team as well. De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, and Jeremy Grant is a good team paired with whoever you get at 5. Why not? Let's have fun. I think you take that. I think you take that. As great as I think Paolo would be, really good. I think he has a lot of overlap with Sabonis. They kind of both have old man game, very good playmakers. So I think he could pair well with Sabonis and learn a lot from him and maybe get better on the defensive end. He's not going to have to do so much play creation on offense because I think that's one of his best skill sets. But I'll let you take him to Detroit. So talk about what's the fit with Cade? What's the fit with
so you're looking at with Detroit, it's about patience. And at this point now you have 2 big playmakers, shot creators, and you build around them in Saddiq Bey. And it's just an awesome place to be.
You're not including Hami Diallo in that core, huh?
Hami Diallo is a Sacramento King now. But yeah, I think if Houston takes Ivy at 3 and Paolo is on the board at 4, if I'm Detroit, this is the call I make. I don't know if the Kings listen, but I mean, if you were Detroit and you felt a 5, you had to be so fucking mad.
Mm-hmm.
But to suddenly have a shot at a guy who could be the best player in this draft, I absolutely think this is what Detroit would do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Detroit should be making calls right now to get to 3 to do that kind of thing, and Houston might, tell them to piss off, and they're going to take Paolo anyway. Houston seems like they should maybe be interested in 5 and Jeremy Grant and a deal like that, especially. But I guess they got rid of Christian Wood probably with the purpose of rebuilding. But I think it's it would be great for them because they really, you look at Detroit and they have Cade Cunningham. I like Saddiq Bey a lot, and that's really it. I think Killian Hayes
that was a miss.
He's shown as much as Teo Maledon. I mean, I'm not ready to give up on Killian Hayes yet, but he has not shown much in a couple of years. Isaiah Stewart is fine, but he's a traditional 5, and that's fine as kind of the ceiling for a guy like that. And that's really all you have there. So yeah, they can be fine with sacrificing Jeremy Grant. They're trying to move him anyway and go get the best player. So you've taken Paolo Banchero at number 4. I am the Sacramento Kings, moving back to number 5, having acquired Jeremy Grant, obviously making a push for the playoffs. So since I'm making a push for the playoffs, I kind of want to, you don't have to go high ceiling. You're just trying to get a guy that can play, and that would be Keegan Murray for most people. I am not in on Keegan Murray. I watched him. Maybe this is very biased because I bet on Iowa to beat Richmond, I believe, and I watched him get absolutely cooked on defense. But I do not want Keegan Murray anywhere if I'm a GM. Certainly not in the top 6. Man, this is tough now because I like. If I'm them, I have Jeremy Grant, I have De'Mon Bones, I have De'Aaron Fox. I have guys that can score. I think personally I'd go Jeremy Sohan at number 5 now. I think he can play. I think he'd be a bad motherfucker for them and maybe try and slow some teams down. Other considerations were Ben Mathurin, we saw in the tournament, kind of have a coming out party this year, was very good. Johnny Davis I like a lot. But I think I'll go with Jeremy Sohan at 5.
That brings it around to me.
Yes.
So since you didn't take Keegan Murray, I'm going to go ahead and take Keegan Murray because I think he is the most pacer of all time. But I also really just like the fit with Miles Turner. I think a situation where offensively you might be able to invert their roles a little bit and play Murray kind of more in the post a little bit and space out with Miles Turner. I think that could be kind of fun. And Murray, he has some foot speed issues defensively, but I think he's a smart defender. So maybe the fact that you have one of the best rim protectors in the league helping out, that could kind of mitigate some offensive issues that Murray brings. So I'm going to go with Keegan Murray on the Pacers at 6. Back to Ryan. I think.
No, it's back
to Sam.
Oh, back to me. So yeah, since I've in that 147 slot. So I am the Portland Trailblazers now. Let's see. This depends how much you want to keep with Dame. If you plan on keeping Dame long term. If you're trying to rebuild around the guy you draft here, and Anthony Simons, not a great spot to be building around, really. Who else did Portland make any moves this offseason? They still have Nurkic. Who does Portland even have?
They do have Nurk. I mean, he's a free agent, but most people. I mean, I think we need to go about this like the Blazers are trying to win around Dame.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think with that, I think I go Dyson Daniels. So I think you wanna start Simons with Dame. He's your new CJ McCollum. You try and score a lot. So there's not really room. Mathurin doesn't fit there. He's a little small. He can't get in the starting lineup with that. Keegan Murray would be a good spot there, but I think I'm gonna go with the wing I like the most, and that's Dyson Daniels.
Okay.
I really like Dyson Daniels to the Pelicans here. So that's very sad for me. I think, the Pelicans, you're looking to add Zion into a playoff caliber roster, arguably. I don't know. Maybe last year was a fluke. You want a guy who can play with CJ, with Ingram, and with Zion. It's an interesting thing because you'd also, the emergence of Herb Jones, you'd like to accommodate that if at all possible, right? But you look at the guys on the board right now.
I have a suggestion. I'll let you, don't want to step on
I
your
am
toes
actually
or
interested in
anything.
hearing what you say.
I kind of think Johnny Davis would be great here with that lineup.
I agree. There was a part of me that was almost like, fuck, Jalen Duren, but I don't think that makes sense because I think ultimately,
I think
maybe
Johnny
you have
Davis,
faith in Zion shooting, but I don't have that much faith in Zion shooting. So
I think
like
you don't
Johnny
have a real
Davis,
true, you don't have a real true one there, and that's
guy.
fine.
Just worked his ass off in Wisconsin. I think, Johnny Davis for the Pelicans. This is a team that's ready to win, and this is a guy who's, not really a project guy, somebody who probably comes in and defines themselves in a season. Yeah, Johnny Davis to the Pelicans at 8.
Okay. LSB with the Spurs at 9, and I'm going to go with
Alex. You're very quiet right now, by the way.
Am I? Is this better?
It is.
Okay. I'm going to go with AJ Griffin at 9 because, just looking at the Spurs roster, I think, DeJounte Murray, not the greatest shooter in the world, probably needs, some guys to help him out from a space standpoint. I also think that, there's a scenario where, AJ Griffin's body is, he's 6'6", 225, 230. Like that guy's going to be able to play some 4. And I think you could play him a lot with Keldon Johnson at the 3 and the 4. And, just the shooting, and hopefully, he gains a little bit of the athleticism back. And I trust the Spurs to develop him a little bit as a defender. So I really like the fit of AJ Griffin with the Spurs.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see their direction as Pop nears retirement. They still don't have, I guess, they have DeJounte. Is he a star? Is he a number 1, or do they need to swing for DeJounte to be a number 2? We'll see where they go with that. But for me, I'm up with the Wizards, who may be trying to replace, same as Portland, maybe trying to replace Brad Beal, or maybe trying to put something around him to win. He's 28, so he's still fairly young. You forget how long. Brad Beal, he's been in the league for 10 years almost, but geez. So I think that they've shown to want to build around him. Is he a free agent?
No. He's
okay.
Everybody,
is he 1 year left?
Everybody thinks he's going to sign an extension this offseason.
Okay, so you're planning on building around Brad Beal. The comp for Shaedon Sharpe in the Ringer draft guide is tall Bradley Beal. If you're going to build around Bradley Beal, I don't think you want a project like that. So I'm going with Ben Mathurin for Washington. I think he fits well with Brad Beal. I think he can kind of score for the second unit. When Brad Beal is sitting, I think he pairs alongside him well at the same time. And I think he's ready to win. Like we saw in the tournament, he's just there. He's a great player. So yeah, I'm going with Ben Mathurin.
That they have Kristaps Porzingis now too.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true.
I forgot about that as well. Jeez.
I'm picking for the Knicks. Alex is on pins and needles right now because this is pick 11.
He's just waiting for Shaedon Sharpe.
Here's the thing, though. I don't know what the Knicks want. What do the Knicks want out of life at this point? They thought they were good last year, and they were wrong. I think, there's an argument maybe you let Mitchell Robinson walk or something, and you pick up Jalen Duren, and you say that's an upgrade, but I think that'd be stupid. I think the Knicks take Tari Eason here. Fine. I'll make Alex happy. But also I think there's a degree to which, like, you know, the Knicks feel like a team that would say, oh, he's got that dog in him.
Hold on. Is this what you would do for the Knicks?
I don't really know what I would do for the Knicks. I would probably take Shaedon Sharpe here.
Okay.
So we'll go with that. We'll say the Knicks take Shaedon Sharpe. I don't know if that makes sense. I get, like, you put him next to RJ Barrett, and it's just like, who needs point guards? We don't do that here. But yeah, I guess the Knicks, they take Shaedon Sharpe, and he busts massively because he went to New York.
Right. Yeah, that super would not work. If that's how
but at this, like, given that I do not see an obvious direction the roster needs to go, I think you probably have to take best player available, which I do think is Shaedon Sharpe.
If you let Shaedon Sharpe play in the G League for a year and then you get rid of Julius Randle in 2023, I think it could work. But yeah, as far as, Shaedon Sharpe needing development, where is arguably the worst place to develop, the Knicks don't exactly have the track record of that.
No.
But I think he could be fun with RJ Barrett, but yeah, the Knicks would. I don't think anyone's going to be a good pick for the Knicks. So what are you to do?
So this just completely screwed me because every player that I like is now off the board.
Well, that's what happens when you tell us to pick the players we like.
I know. We all agree.
I think while you think of that, I think there is a reasonable, where we did this. I would have considered Jalen Duren at 10 for the Wizards, because I know centers aren't the biggest need in the world. But I think having a guy like that next to Kristaps and let Kristaps play the foursome, maybe that could, that's kind of my philosophy with Chet, is putting just a massive guy like that with him to
probably
keep a beating
something
off of him.
Needs more than Chet, even given his current physical state.
Yeah.
I do think that makes sense. I also think that if Shaedon Sharpe was on the board at 11, New York is getting a call from a man named Sam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But anyway, Alex, that's not how it fell. So who would you take at number 12 now for the Oklahoma City Thunder?
All right, I'm going to go with Dalen Terry.
I hear a lot about Dalen Terry, and I haven't got to read too much or watch too much on him. So tell me about Dalen Terry. Seems to be a draft Twitter favorite.
He definitely is. He's a guy that I've recently become acquainted with. And largely in my mind, I kind of think he's comparable to Dyson Daniels. He's like a 6'7" point guard / wing that, he can handle it. He's a good passer. He's a questionable shooter, which, shouts to the Thunder. That would be, you can't go a draft without having a guy like that. I just think that, long term, I think earlier we were talking about the Dort stuff, like how long is he going to last here? And I think Dalen Terry is the kind of guy that could come in and maybe even replace a guy like Dort in that lineup. And then you've just got a lineup with tons of ball handling, tons of playmaking, tons of skill. But I also think that Dalen Terry is going to be able to defend pretty well at the next level. And he's the guy, if he can shoot, if he develops a shot to a workable level, then he's a really, really good player to have on your team. So that's my guy for the Thunder at 12. I was, this close to getting Shaedon, but.
And even in this exercise where we were, taking players we like, and we all like Shaedon. Well, I guess we were taking less projection, and we were taking, best fits for teams. Shaedon still doesn't fall to 12. And so I think if we want Shaedon, I think we're going to have to trade up a little bit for him. So we don't know what all is going on inside 30 very fancy offices, but I think that's what's going to happen if you want a guy like Shaedon or Sohan or whoever.
I think it's more likely that Sohan would fall to 12 than Shaedon.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because inevitably someone will talk themselves into the mystery box that is Shaedon Sharpe, and if not, someone's gonna say they are and hold that as leverage over OKC, to where you have to trade up anyway. So for me, I have the Charlotte Hornets at 13, who also have the 15th pick. So a lot of people are projecting center to them because that is a need to get better, improve off of Mason Plumlee. Pair that with Miles Bridges and LaMelo Ball. And so because Jalen Duren and Mark Williams are both there, I think either of them would be fine for Charlotte to have. I'm not going to go with one of them, and I'm going to go with Malachi Branham from Ohio State.
Interesting.
I think he's a good pick for the two for them. I think he plays really good defense. I think he shoots the ball really well. He can, spot up. I think he's a good fit with LaMelo and Miles Bridges, and whatever center you pair with him that you draft at 15.
That leaves me with the last lottery pick.
I'm going to make pick 15 too, by the way, just so it's even.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm going to guess you won't go center because you don't love those. Even though at 15, I think if Jalen Duren's there, they sprint to the podium with him.
That's why the Cleveland Cavaliers are just to spite Charlotte. They're going to run an all center lineup next year with Jalen Duren. No. The Cavs here, this is an interesting thing. What would the Cavs do in this situation? So you've got, I actually think Tari Eason makes some sense for the Cavs here. Because he's a guy, it'd be a situation where he's not running the show, right? So his wild tendencies on both sides of the ball, I think, are tempered a bit by being with guys like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. With the Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen backstop, like you've got because one thing about Tari Eason was that he was just so disruptive on defense. And that was like LSU's whole deal, is they were just like, we're trying to get a steal on every play. And that's I think his role as a guy whose job is to just go and mess things up on the defensive end. I think that works really well with what Cleveland does, because you've also got Isaac Okoro. So yeah, I say Tari Eason for Cleveland.
Yeah. I like it. I forgot that you didn't take him for the Knicks, but I still like Malachi Branham for Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jalen Duren because they have LaMelo, and for me, it would just be so fun to watch Miles Bridges and Jalen Duren catching LaMelo.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need a center. I think there's some potential upside. Maybe the college game just didn't fit him very well, because he was a top 5 guy. I think he was the number 1 guy in his class at one. So there is some upside that maybe just didn't quite get shown this year. Memphis was not a good situation this year. The point guard play specifically. I mean, they were playing Emoni Bates at point guard for part of the year. And shouts to Emoni Bates, but so yeah, I think that having a guy like LaMelo unlocking things offensively for Jalen Duren could be really nice, and then defensively, he's what they need. They need somebody that can possibly play defense, and that could be.
Yeah, I think there's a real possibility that Jalen Duren just becomes like the platonic ideal of Clint Capella.
Yeah.
It's I don't really think he's going to develop a sophisticated post game, but in a spread pick and roll system, he's going to feast on his athleticism, on his leaping ability. Yeah.
And I think
much stronger than Capella also.
Yeah, that as well.
So that's a good player. That's a valuable player, especially on a rookie contract late in the lottery.
Well, this is post lottery at this point. 15,
True.
So yeah, I mean, I think, if, from the Thunder's perspective, I think there would be some disappointed people if they came away with Chet Holmgren and Dalen Terry. But it's just
I think there'd be a lot of who?
Yeah. I think the reality of the situation is that unless Jalen Duren or Tari Eason or somebody get picked, top 11, the Thunder might be left with with a group of guys that we're not big fans of, and one of the guys that's been projected to the Thunder a lot that I don't think, you know, I personally didn't consider and we didn't wind up picking was Ousmane Dieng. I'm just kind of out on the idea.
Yeah, I mean that's a very, I like him. That's a very obvious sign that you do not care about next year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Do we have anything else we want to go through? I mean,
do we want to just like give some quick names for who we'd like the Thunder to take at the end of the first, early second, just so a year from now and one of them's good, and we've said, you know, 9 names that we can say, oh, see, I told you so. Forget the other 8 guys I said.
So the guy that I really want at 34 is Kenneth Lofton. I'm just kidding.
Guys, go watch Kenneth Lofton.
I will guarantee you Kenneth Lofton Jr. will be a G League star.
He's going to be awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. I really want Gabriel Procida.
Gabriel Procida. I do not even know the name.
I've heard
gotten deep into the weeds.
He's an Italian wing.
Love it.
6'7", 194 pounds. Parent, like, you know, everyone says he's a really, really high level athlete, especially for a white guy. Long, athletic, can shoot it too. Like he, you know, to me that sounds like 3-and-D wing to me. So, and he's Italian. I think the Thunder, like I could just definitely see the Thunder taking this guy because he's an international prospect. Like it makes total sense.
Yeah, John Hollinger agrees with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, John Hollinger has him at 33 on his big board and specifically cited OKC, Memphis, and San Antonio as teams with extra picks and might also take an international guy.
All 3 of those guys are super. All 3 of those teams are super smart. So
yep.
It makes,
I like
that. Very fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan. I have a couple.
Yeah. I just want to say that I am out on Patrick Baldwin Jr. here, but I would understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fine taking him in the second. I think that's a great value in the second. I think he's no different from Shaedon Sharpe. If Patrick Baldwin Jr. just didn't play at all this year, he's still a lottery pick. So I mean, you're getting value. Yeah, you've seen bad sides of him, but you can easily chalk that up that he played at Milwaukee and his teammates sucked, and yeah, that was that. So I'd be fine with him, you know, at 34. Don't give up real capital for him, but I'm good with that. I personally, Alex is all out on this, but that late in the draft, I'm fine with Walker Kessler. I think, like I said, take a true 5 next to Chet. Someone that just eats body blows in the regular season, keeps him healthy. That is a badass defensive lineup because Chet can easily cover 4s, and then you get him in his strongest skill set as backside help. And Walker Kessler can more than hold his own as a 5. And Chet's guy's more, you know, off in the corner a little bit. He can be help defense. I think Walker Kessler is an elite defender, and that's good value for a center there at the end. Christian Brown from Kansas is getting a lot of hype. He might go too early now. I think he could be a scoring type that the Thunder could get at that point. Who else? I mean, there's a ton of guys that I like. Harrison Ingram a lot from Stanford. I think he has good upside.
Let me throw a couple names out.
Go ahead.
I don't like. There's been a lot of talk that he might be gone by the, you know, even the 20s. But I really like the idea of Max Christie, Michigan State. You know, I think he's got all the tools to be a 3-and-D 2-3 type guy. So he shot it. He can shoot it. He played defense at Michigan State. Like, he's a guy that projects well in that regard. And then, you know, if we're talking swings, you know, why not go after a guy like Josh Minot? Super athletic.
Yeah, that was true. I was trying to come up with Josh Minot.
Yeah. You know, like I personally think the Thunder probably are more in the mindset of taking their swings early in the draft and then looking for like very specific role type guys at this point. But Minot is interesting. And then one more for me, Trevor Keels.
That was the name I was about to say after you said Minot.
Yeah. Keels, to me, he's got, you know, he looks like Lou Dort Like if you just look at him, like he's a thick guy that. But I also think he might be able to kind of do a lot of what Dort does. But he might project as a better offensive player than Dort.
So essentially, have Lou Dort train his own replacement.
Right. You know, I mean, we've talked multiple times in this podcast about maybe Dort not being long for the Thunder. So you may as well get the next Lou Dort in here. You know, if you can get another Lou Dort at 34, I think you're pretty happy with him. So anyone from you, Ryan, you have any names?
No, I'm curious to know, Sam, how do you feel about, you've been a big Walker Kessler guy for what feels like years now. Walker, how do you feel about Walker Kessler versus Christian Koloko?
I was thinking about that, and I thought that might have been where you're going, and I was going to look up how big Christian Koloko is. I like Koloko a lot. Is he a bit skinnier than Walker Kessler, I believe? He looks skinnier.
Yeah, I'm seeing him listed at 6'10", 230. So he's a smaller.
Yeah, he's a smaller guy. And Walker Kessler's only listed at, I think, 235, I think. But he just seems bigger. So that's why it's specifically, the pairing with Chet. I want a bigger center that can take the blows. I think Koloko would be good as well. I think he's the kind of center that is worth taking at the end of the first, early second as well. Don't like him as much with Chet, though. I think he'd be better. He'd be a better offensive weapon than Kessler for sure, as far as, rim running, catching lobs, that kind of thing. More of like a Clint Capella type.
Have y'all heard the reports that Koloko is shooting threes in workouts?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
I have heard it.
Put him in the lottery then. Take him at 12.
Yep. Draft him.
Yeah, I do like Koloko.
Well, if we're talking centers, I got to throw out Ishmael Kamagate as well, just because I think he's a better athlete than either of those guys that we just talked about. And he's younger. So that's, he's a rim runner type guy. So
what if instead of drafting a center, we just got EJ Onu from the Memphis G League?
There you go. God, you still bringing up EJ Onu, huh?
Wow. Is he good? Probably not. Is he really, really fucking tall? Yes.
Yeah,
he's tall, he runs fast, and he shoots the three. Does he make good decisions? It's not important.
Cool.
Well, does anyone have any lasting takes? I think I gotta go pretty soon. So
yeah, I think we're wrapping up. Folks, draft is this Thursday. And I still can't believe Sam Vecenie's guide isn't out. It's really making me pretty upset. But watch, enjoy. It's gonna be a really exciting night, I think, for Thunder fans. And yeah, we'll have reactions to it at some point, I'm sure. Yeah, thanks for listening to the podcast. Subscribe to us on the Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, Spotify. And we'll see you guys later.